My mother called while I was walking toward the employee parking lot with a salary offer folded inside a blue presentation folder. I remember the folder because the company had printed its name across the front in silver, and the silver caught the late afternoon sun every time my arm moved. I had spent most of the day trying not to look at it. The offer was for a finance manager position at another company, $22,000 more than I was making, with better health insurance and a title I had been working toward for years. The offer expired Tuesday afternoon. I was halfway between the building and my car when Mom said, "Your father and I had to make a decision about the tuition money." The words slowed me down before I understood them. What decision? We're going to use the next payment for Megan's reception. A delivery truck was backing into the loading area behind me. Its warning alarm kept repeating the same flat note. I moved closer to the row of parked cars so I could hear. "The 5,000? Yes." She said it in the tone she used when confirming an appointment time. My parents had promised me $5,000 toward my final semester in a part-time MBA program. The money was theirs. It sat in an account they controlled, and they had always been clear that they would send it when the balance came due. I had planned around that promise when I registered for 2 courses. The full balance was $9,240. It was due the following Friday. "Did something happen with the reception?" I asked. The final costs were higher than Megan expected. They have deposits down. They can't just walk away from everything now. I looked at the blue folder in my hand. My thumb was pressed over the first digit of the new salary, but I had read the number enough times that day to see it anyway. $118,000. My current salary was $96,000. The new job would not begin for 3 weeks, and according to the payroll schedule in the offer packet, my first check would arrive roughly 2 weeks after that. The number on the page was not money I could spend next Friday. Mom kept talking. "You're doing well, honey. You have a career. Megan has one wedding. I have tuition due. And you'll figure it out. You always do." There was no cruelty in the way she said it. That made it harder to answer. She sounded proud of me. Then she hesitated. It was a small pause, maybe 2 seconds. I remember it better than the truck or the folder. "Daniel is also a little short," she said. "Would you be able to lend him something?" "How much is something?" They were thinking 10,000? It would be a loan. I stopped beside my car but did not unlock it. Mom explained that Daniel expected a year-end bonus. He and Megan could repay me over time. She said they were not asking me to give the money away. She said family should be able to help family without turning everything into a negotiation. I should have said no. I knew even then that I should say it clearly enough that she could not carry another meaning back to Megan. Instead, I looked at the silver lettering on the folder and pictured my sister hearing that I had received a large raise on the same week. Our parents redirected money to her wedding. Megan and I had spent most of our lives being compared in ways neither of us had requested. She had married first. I had advanced faster at work. She was warmer with our relatives. I was supposedly more practical. Every difference became evidence in a contest we had never agreed to enter. "I need to look at my dates," I said. Mom exhaled, relieved. "Of course. Just let us know soon. They have to finalize some things with the venue." I could have corrected her relief. I did not. "When?" "Early next week, I think." "My tuition is due Friday. You said that." The delivery truck stopped beeping. For a moment, the parking lot seemed strangely quiet. "I'll check everything tonight," I said. "Thank you, Allison. I knew you'd at least consider it." After the call, I sat in my car with the door closed and the engine off. The blue folder rested on the passenger seat. My phone showed the student accounts reminder I had received that morning. Payment deadline. Mark 15. Under it was an older email from the school. Entitlement plan enrollment, close March 11 at 5 p.m. That was Monday. The salary offer had made me feel secure for most of the day. Sitting there, it felt like evidence being used against me by people who did not even know it existed. I opened the folder again and read the start date, April 1. Then the payroll schedule, first pay date, April 12. I had a promise that had just been withdrawn, a higher salary I had not yet accepted, and a request for $10,000 that my mother had already begun treating as a possibility. I drove home without calling anyone back. I spent most of that weekend at my kitchen table with my laptop, a yellow legal pad, and a calculator I kept clearing because I disliked the answers. At 32, I was not financially helpless. That was part of what made the situation difficult to explain without sounding dishonest. I had paid my own rent since college. I had an emergency fund. I contributed to retirement. I had no credit card balance, though I still carried student loans from my undergraduate degree. My parents had helped with expenses at different times, and the $5,000 for my final semester had never been presented as charity. Dad had called it their contribution to finishing what I had started. I had believed him. If I paid the full $9,240 myself, I could do it. I would have to pull most of the money from my emergency savings, and the job transition would leave me with almost no cushion until the first paycheck arrived. If I paid for one course, the balance would be $4,620. I could manage that and still keep enough money for rent, insurance, and the ordinary emergencies that tend to arrive when a person has decided she can survive without them. I wrote both options down. Then I wrote, loan to Daniel, $10,000. I drew a line through it, then felt guilty and erased the line. Dad called Sunday afternoon. He did not ask how I was doing. He asked whether Mom had explained the situation correctly. She said, "You're taking the tuition money and putting it toward the reception." We already transferred it. I sat straighter. When? Friday, the day after Mom called me. Dad said the venue's final payment had come in higher than expected because Megan had added guests from Daniel's family and upgraded the food package. He said there were too many moving pieces to review every detail with me. I'm not asking to review the wedding budget. It sounds like you are. I'm asking why you promised me money for tuition and then transferred it before telling me. We told you. After you decided. He went quiet. Dad's silences were usually brief and deliberate. This one lasted long enough that I could hear a television in the background. It's our monies, Allison. I know. You're talking as though we took something from your account. I didn't say that. You're 32 years old. You make good money. Megan and Daniel have deposits they can't get back. My tuition isn't hypothetical. No one said it was. He had a way of disagreeing without stating the opposite. It often left me explaining a point he claimed he had never challenged. I told him the installment plan closed Monday and the full balance was due Friday. I explained that dropping one course would delay my graduation. How long? At least one semester. That's inconvenient, he said, but it's not the same as losing a wedding venue. I pressed the calculator button with my thumbnail until the display went blank. This was supposed to be my final semester. You'll still finish. That isn't the point. Then what is the point? The honest answer was that I wanted him to say his promise to me still mattered even after something more visible came along. Instead, I gave him numbers. I told him the cost of each course. I explained the deadline. I mentioned the extra registration fees I might face if I returned for only one class in the fall. Dad listened and then said, "You're investing in yourself. Megan's wedding is for the whole family." That sentence settled over the conversation. My education was personal ambition. My sister's reception was a family obligation. The categories were already fixed. "What about the 10,000s for Daniel?" I asked. "We're only asking whether you can help." "Does he know you asked?" "Of course. Does Megan?" "They both know we're exploring options." Exploring options. I almost said no then. I had the word ready. But I pictured Megan hearing that I had refused immediately after losing the tuition money to her reception. I imagined the family version forming before I had even spoken to her. Allison is punishing her sister because she resents the wedding. "I haven't agreed to anything," I said. "No one said you had. Make sure they know that. I'm sure they understand." They did not. On Monday, I went to work telling myself I would call the student accounts office at lunch. A budget meeting ran long. Then my supervisor asked me to review a forecast before she sent it to the regional director. At 4:38, I looked at the clock. I opened the school portal in a separate browser window. The installment plan page required me to confirm my balance and link a payment method. I began filling it out, then stopped when my phone showed an incoming call from Mom. I let it ring. The page timed out while I was comparing the payment schedule against my bank balance. When I logged back in, the installment option was gone. The clock in the corner of my screen read 5:07. I called the student accounts number, but the office had closed. That night, I received a text from Mom. Any thoughts on Daniel loan? They need to know soon. I typed, I can't do it. Then I deleted the message and wrote, I'm still working through the tuition problem. Mom replied with a heart and the words, I know you'll make the right decision. I put the phone face down. By waiting for my parents to reconsider, I had lost the easiest way to replace the money they had withdrawn. I called student accounts at 8:03 Tuesday morning from an empty conference room. The woman who answered asked for my student number, date of birth, and the verification code she sent to my email. After she confirmed my identity, I explained that I had missed the installment deadline by 7 minutes. I understand, she said. Unfortunately, enrollment closed automatically at 5 yesterday. Is there any late application? Not for this semester. What if I make the first installment today? The system won't create a plan after the deadline. Her voice was patient. I found myself becoming more formal in response, as though good manners might produce a different policy. I asked whether my parents could contact the school and reverse anything they had done. She checked my account. No third party has made changes to your registration or balance, she said. There's no authorized payer listed. That was the clean procedural truth of it. My parents had not touched my student account. They had only withdrawn money they controlled before it reached me. The woman explained my remaining options. I could pay the full $9,240 by Friday. I could drop one course before the add drop deadline and pay $4,620, or I could drop both and lose the semester. If I drop one, will it affect graduation? That depends on course availability. Which course? I told her. She checked the schedule. That one isn't offered in the summer. The next planned section is fall. I had known that. Hearing her say it made the delay less negotiable. She emailed me the withdrawal form and reminded me that it had to be submitted before 5 on Friday to receive a full tuition adjustment for the dropped course. After the call, I returned to my desk and found the blue salary folder where I had locked it in a drawer. The new company wanted my answer by 3 that afternoon. I read the benefits section again. The company offered tuition reimbursement, but only for courses beginning after the employee's start date and only after completing 90 days of employment. It would not cover the classes already on my schedule. There was no signing bonus, no salary advance, no hidden reservoir behind the number. At 11, the hiring manager called. You're excited about you, she said. I just want to make sure you don't have any unanswered questions. I asked about the first payroll date even though it was printed in the packet. She confirmed April 12th. I thanked her and accepted the job. For a few minutes, I let myself feel pleased. I had spent 5 years at my current company, moving from analyst to senior analyst, taking night courses, and accepting assignments nobody wanted because they put me in rooms with people who could teach me something. The promotion mattered to me. Then I opened my banking app and returned to the problem due Friday. I could pay for both courses and reduce my savings to an amount that made me uneasy. If my car needed repairs, if the new job did not work out, if there was a delay in payroll, I would have almost no room. I had built that emergency fund slowly. My parents knew I had one because Dad had once praised me for being disciplined. I had never told them the balance. That afternoon, Mom called again. Did you accept the offer? She asked. My hand stopped over the keyboard. I had not told her about it. What offer? The one for the new job. You mentioned interviewing. Months earlier, I had told her I was speaking with another company. She did not know the final number or that the offer had arrived. They made one, I said. That's wonderful. So this may all be easier than it seemed Thursday. It doesn't start until April, but you accepted? Yes, I knew something would work out for you. I should have told her the salary was irrelevant to Friday's deadline. I should have told her the tuition money still mattered. Instead, I said, I'm still looking at the numbers. And Daniel's request? I haven't decided. Allison, they need an answer. So do I. Mom became quiet. I'm trying not to make this harder for Megan, I said. I don't understand why it has to involve Megan at all. Your father and I made the decision. The money is paying for her reception. She didn't take it from you. I know. That was true, and it did not make the situation simpler. Mom said Megan might call me. She suggested I not lead with the tuition because Megan was already under pressure. After we hung up, I opened the withdrawal form and entered my name. I did not submit it. I was still waiting for a version of the week in which I could keep both courses, accept the job, avoid hurting my sister, and refuse the loan without anyone assigning me an ugly motive. By Tuesday night, that version required money I did not have and honesty I had not yet managed. Megan called after 9 that night. She did not begin with the loan. She asked whether I had decided what shoes to wear to the wedding. I have the navy ones, I said. You wore those at Aunt Carol's anniversary. No one photographed my feet. That is not the point. We talked about shoes for almost 3 minutes. I knew she was circling something, and she knew I knew. That was how we had handled difficult subjects since we were teenagers. Finally, she said, "Mom told me you're checking the timing." For what? There was a pause. The bridge money. I closed my laptop. What did she tell you? That you understood about the 5,000 and you were looking at whether you could help with the rest. I didn't say I understood. She said you didn't object. I was standing in a parking lot when she told me. Megan sighed. Listen, I'm not trying to get in the middle of something between you and Mom. The money they moved was supposed to pay my tuition. I know it was for school.
No, I mean I had registered based on it. I have a balance due Friday. Megan did not answer immediately. How much? $9,240.
For one semester? For 2 graduate courses. Mom made it sound like they were helping you here and there. They promised $5,000 for the final semester. I didn't know that. I believed her. At least, I believed she had not known the number or the deadline. Megan had never paid much attention to the details of my program.
She knew I went to class 2 nights a week and expected to graduate in May. I had not invited her into the financial part. So what happens now? She asked. I either pay all of it or drop a class. Can't your new company reimburse you? Not for this semester. But you got the job? Yes.
What's the salary? The question arrived too quickly. I looked at the blue folder on the kitchen counter. It doesn't matter for Friday. I didn't say it did. You asked? Because Mom said it was a big increase. She doesn't know the number. Megan's tone changed. You're being very guarded. I'm trying not to turn this into a comparison. No one is comparing us. That was the kind of statement our family made after comparing us. Megan said Mom had told her I was likely able to help Daniel temporarily. She and Daniel had added a few things to the reception package after my parents offered the $5,000. They had also left $10,000 in their working budget under expected short-term financing. You put my name in your budget? It says bridge loan. From me? Mom said you were considering it. Considering is not agreeing. I know that. Then why did you budget it? Because we needed to know whether the numbers worked. A sharp answer came to mind. I swallowed it because I could already hear how it would sound repeated by someone else. Megan said she would send me the spreadsheet so I could see what she meant. A minute later, the email arrived. The file was called Final Wedding Budge V7. I opened it while we were still on the phone. The sheet listed deposits, flowers, catering, photography, transportation, rentals, and a line near the bottom. Bridge loan, Allison, $10,000 pending. My name looked official in the cell. What did you add after Mom spoke to you? I asked. Daniel's aunt and uncle. Some people from his father's side. We upgraded the bar package because the basic one was only beer and wine. Can those things still be changed? Some of them. The final count is due Monday. So yes, technically, the word carried more feeling than the rest of her answer. I could hear Daniel speaking somewhere near her. Megan covered the phone and replied to him, then returned. He wants to talk to you himself. Not tonight. Allison, we are not trying to steal from you. I didn't say you were. You keep saying things like that. Like what? Careful things. Things you can defend later. She was right. I had been doing that all week. I told her I had not agreed to lend the money and that she should not plan as though I had. Are you saying no? The word was available again. I looked at the withdrawal form still open on my computer. I'm saying I need until Friday. Megan made a sound that was almost a laugh. That's the same thing, Mom said. What? That you needed to check timing. She said it sounded promising. It isn't promising. Then say no. I wish I could say her challenge freed me. It did not.
I thought about the family stories that grew from moments like this. I thought about the wedding, the seating chart, the relatives who already believed I cared more about work than people. I thought about Megan asking why I had waited until the final week to object. "I'll give you a final answer Friday," I said. "Fine." She hung up without saying goodnight. The spreadsheet remained on my screen. Megan retained the original file. I only had the copy she had emailed me. It did not create a debt or a contract. It did something less formal and more dangerous. It showed that my silence had already been entered as a number. Daniel emailed me Wednesday morning. His message was polite and shorter than I expected. "Allison, Megan said it might be easier if I sent you what repayment could look like. I understand you haven't committed to anything. I don't want this to feel vague." Attached was a one-page schedule. The proposed loan was $10,000. Payments would begin in June at $350 a month. A larger payment would be made in December using his expected annual bonus. The schedule projected full repayment within 18 months. Below that, he had listed his gross salary, his car payment, his student loan payment, and an estimate of the household expenses he and Megan would share after the wedding. His salary was $84,000. I read the number twice. I was already making $12,000 more than Daniel before the new offer. I had not known that. My parents had spoken about him as though he and Megan were starting from a much more fragile position than I was, and perhaps they were. Income was only one part of a person's finances. Daniel had debt. Megan earned less than either of us. They were paying for a wedding and preparing to combine households. Still, the comparison my mother had tried to avoid was sitting in a document Daniel had created himself. I did not feel triumphant. I felt tired. At lunch, I called him from my car. He answered on the second ring. "Thanks for looking at it," he said. "I know this is awkward. Did Mom tell you I had agreed in principle?" "She said you were figuring out what amount worked." "I never said an amount worked." He was quiet. I may have misunderstood. What exactly did she say? I don't remember the exact words. That answer was more believable than a perfect quotation would have been. He told me my parents had offered the $5,000 for the venue and said they would ask whether I could handle the remaining gap temporarily. Daniel had assumed they would not have raised it with him unless they believed I was open to the idea. Megan put $10,000 in the budget with my name, I said. She put bridge loan with my name, yes. A car pulled into the space beside mine. I turned slightly away even though the windows were closed. "Are any of the wedding costs still adjustable?" I asked. Daniel exhaled. "The head count, the late-night food, some of the bar package. We would lose a little on changes, but not 10,000. "Then why borrow 10? Because Megan doesn't want to cut everything this close to the wedding." "That isn't what I asked. I know." His voice tightened for the first time. He said Megan had spent more than a year planning the day. His parents had contributed less than expected. My parents had offered help. The final gap had grown in pieces, not one reckless decision. "And the bonus?" I asked. "It's likely. Guaranteed? No. What happens if it doesn't come?" "We keep making monthly payments. For more than 18 months? Probably." I looked at the repayment schedule. Every month had a clean number. None of the months included a car repair, a medical bill, or a disagreement between newlyweds about paying his sister-in-law. "Does Megan know your bonus isn't guaranteed?" "Yes." I could not tell whether that meant they had discussed the risk seriously or merely acknowledged it. Daniel asked if the loan would create a hardship for me. "That depends on what you mean by hardship. Would you have to borrow money? No. Would you miss rent? No." His questions were reasonable, and they irritated me. "If I lend you 10,000, I said, "I would be taking money out of my emergency savings while changing jobs and paying tuition." I didn't know about the tuition. "Megan knows now. She said you could drop a class." The sentence was not cruel. It was practical in exactly the way my father had been practical. I pressed my free hand against the steering wheel. "What can you cut before Monday?" I asked. Daniel listed the same items Megan had mentioned, the upgraded bar package. Late-night food, some guests who had not confirmed, a shuttle extension they had added for relatives staying at a seconded hotel. "So there are choices. There are always choices," he said. "Some of them make people angry." I almost laughed, though nothing was funny. He asked whether I had received the new job offer.
Yes, congratulations. Thank you.
What does it pay? I watched a woman push a shopping cart across the far end of the lot. I'm not discussing the salary. Okay.
He sounded embarrassed, and I was glad he did not argue. I told him I would answer Friday in writing so there would be no confusion. Before we ended the call, he said something I did not expect. If the answer is no, I'd rather hear it from you than through your mother. Afterward, I sat in the car until my lunch break was nearly over. By then, I understood the shape of the situation well enough. Mom believed I could absorb the cost. Megan believed a possible loan was stable enough to enter into a budget. Daniel believed my parents had approached him with at least some authority to discuss my money.
None of them had the whole picture. None of them needed another conversation to reveal a hidden plan. The remaining question was what I was willing to lose in order to stop them from continuing. I submitted the course withdrawal at 8:17 Friday morning. I had woken before 5 and spent 2 hours moving money between columns in a spreadsheet that no longer had a good version. If I kept both courses, I could preserve my May graduation date. I would also begin a new job with less than 1 month of basic expenses in reserve. I had worked too hard to build that reserve to pretend it was excess money simply because no emergency had claimed it yet. The course I dropped was corporate strategy, a required class offered again in the fall. The online form warned that withdrawing would change my expected graduation date and might require a new graduation application. I checked the confirmation box. For several minutes, I did nothing. Then I clicked submit. The email arrived at 8:19. Your schedules has been updated. The student accounts portal showed a revised balance of $4,620. I paid it from savings before I could reconsider. The transaction confirmation appeared beneath the balance, and the account changed to 0. I had solved the immediate tuition problem. The solution cost me a semester. At work, I closed my office door and drafted 3 separate emails. I wrote Mom's first. Mom, I need to be clear so nobody continues planning around an answer I have not given. I will not lend Daniel and Megan $10,000. I also will not co-sign, guarantee, or otherwise take responsibility for wedding debt. I did not agree during our call. I said I needed to check my dates and finances. I should have said no sooner, and I understand the delay created confusion. I have withdrawn from one course and paid the remaining tuition myself. Please do not represent my income, savings, or future salary as available for family expenses unless I explicitly agree. Alice and I reread it and removed a paragraph about the promise my parents had broken. That issue mattered, but including it made the refusal sound conditional, as though they could regain access to my money by returning theirs. I sent the email. For Megan, I changed 2 sentences. I told her I understood that my delay had affected her planning. I also told her I had never approved the bridge loan line and would not fund it. For Daniel, I thanked him for sending the repayment schedule and stated that I would not proceed. I did not disclose my new salary to any of them. Mom called within 12 minutes. I let it ring once before answering. You sent Megan that email at work? She asked. I sent all 3 of you separate emails. You made it sound like we were trying to take out a loan in your name. I said I wouldn't co-sign or guarantee anything. No one asked you to co-sign. I wanted the boundary to be clear. You could have just said no. I should have. Instead, you waited until the last business day before the venue deadline. The venue deadline is Monday. That is not much time. It is more time than I had after you moved the tuition money. Mom inhaled sharply. So this is punishment? No, it certainly looks like it. I had prepared explanations, but the words felt too neat when I tried to use them. I dropped a course this morning, I said. That was your decision. Yes, you had other options. So do Megan and Daniel. Mom did not answer. I could hear cabinet doors closing on her end. She tended to clean when angry, not carefully. Something glass struck the counter. You always make everything sound so clinical, she said. As though people are numbers in one of your reports. I looked at my computer screen. An actual report waited behind the email window. I didn't know how else to make you hear me. I heard you. Her voice had gone flat. You have made your position very clear. She ended the call. Megan responded by email an hour later. I wish you had told me this Tuesday instead of letting us think you were deciding. That was the entire message. She was right about Tuesday. She was wrong about the rest, but I could not answer one without admitting the other. Daniel replied after lunch. Understood. We'll revise the plan. No accusation, no apology.
That afternoon, the school confirmed my withdrawal before the 5 o'clock deadline. My account remained paid. Corporate strategy disappeared from my course page. The empty space where the class had been was more upsetting than I expected. I had spent days fearing that saying no would make me look vindictive. By delaying, I had made the refusal arrive at a time when vindictiveness was easier to believe. The boundary was still necessary. It was also late. Both things remained true after everyone had read the emails. Megan and Daniel spent the weekend revising the reception. I knew because Megan sent me the updated venue, quote, Sunday night. Her email had no greeting. The attachment showed a reduced guest count, the standard beer and wine package, and no late-night food service. The shuttle would make one route instead of two. The revised total was lower by a little over $7,000. At the bottom of the email, Megan wrote, "This is what your final answer changed." I opened the old budget beside the new one. The numbers did not show what she wanted them to show. My answer had not created the original gap. It had changed how they were required to close it. I typed that sentence. Then I deleted it. I called her instead. She answered but did not say hello. "I got the quote," I said. "Good. I'm sorry I waited until Friday. Are you sorry you said no?" "No. Then I'm not sure what the apology does." Neither was I. Megan said they had removed 18 people from the list. Some had not responded, but several were relatives Daniel's parents had expected them to include. She said the venue would keep part of the cost for the shuttle change. She said the late-night food had been Daniel's idea and he was pretending not to care about losing it. "What about the remaining balance?" I asked. "We're covering it." "How?" "Our savings and credit." I hesitated. "Whose credit?" "Ours." I had asked because I needed to know whether my parents had found another way to place me inside the obligation. Megan heard it as an audit. "You don't need our account details," she said. "You're right. We're not asking you for anything." "I know. You keep saying that like you're relieved." I looked around my apartment. My corporate strategy textbook was still on the coffee table because I had not decided where to put it. "I am relieved," I said. Megan went silent. That was the wrong answer, though it was honest. "I didn't want you to have a bad wedding," I added. "You just didn't care enough to help prevent it." "I cared." "I wasn't willing to finance it." She laughed once. "You make those sound completely separate. They are separate to me." "Well, they aren't to me." Her voice shook near the end, and she cleared her throat as though the problem were physical. She told me our parents had already contributed the $5,000. Daniel and she would cover the rest. The wedding would still happen. She did not need me to explain risk or budgets. "What do you need from me?" I asked. "Nothing." It was not a request for space. It was a verdict. After we hung up, I sat on the floor beside the coffee table and opened my school calendar. The fall section of corporate strategy was listed as tentative. Registration would open in June. The tuition rate was subject to change. The money I had saved by dropping the course had not become free money. It had become a future bill. Mom called Monday morning to tell me the venue changes had been finalized before the deadline. "They managed," she said. "I'm glad." "You sound surprised." "I'm not." She told me Daniel had put some of the remaining balance on a credit line in his and Megan's names. She did not know the exact amount, and I did not ask. The only fact that mattered to my boundary was that I had not signed, guaranteed, or transferred anything. Mom said, "I hope you understand this will affect your relationship with your sister." "It already has. You could still offer something." The suggestion was quieter than the original request. It carried less authority. "No." Mom waited. Months earlier, I might have filled the silence with reasons. I might have offered a smaller amount to prove I was not selfish. This time, I allowed the answer to remain where I had put it. "All right," she said finally. She did not sound as though anything was all right. The wedding budget was now fixed. Megan and Daniel had made their choices with resources they controlled. My parents' $5,000 remained in the reception. My tuition payment remained withdrawn from my savings. No one had won the week. The difference was that my future income was no longer included in somebody else's spreadsheet. The wedding took place 4 weeks later at a restored hotel outside Columbus.
By then, I had finished my notice period at my old company and completed my first week at the new one. I had not yet received a paycheck.
The navy shoes were uncomfortable before the ceremony began. Megan had been right about them. I arrived early because I was supposed to help our aunt find the family room and make sure Dad had the envelope with the officiant's payment. Those were ordinary tasks. I was grateful for them. Megan was upstairs with the bridesmaids when I arrived. Mom moved through the lobby carrying a garment bag, a box of place cards, and the expression she used when mistakes were being made by everyone except her. She kissed my cheek. "You're here. I said I would be, I know." Her eyes moved to my dress, then my shoes. "You wore those to Aunt Carol's anniversary." So I've been told. For a second, her mouth almost softened. Then someone called her name from across the lobby, and she walked away. The ceremony was beautiful. Megan looked happy when she saw Daniel, and whatever else I felt, I was glad of that. The reception was smaller than the original plan, but not small. The tables were full. There was wine, beer, dinner, music, flowers, and more cake than anyone could eat. No late-night food appeared. One shuttle left at 11 instead of 2 running at different times. Most guests did not know anything had changed. A few relatives asked why certain cousins had not come. Mom said the final count had been complicated. Daniel's father made a comment about hotel prices. No one said my name. I sat at a table with 2 aunts, one of Megan's college friends, and a couple from Daniel's office. The couple asked what I did for work. "I'm a finance manager," I said. "New position?" The man asked. "I started Monday." Mom was passing behind my chair. She slowed slightly. "Congratulations," the woman said. "That must be exciting." "It is." "What kind of company?" I answered. Nobody asked my salary. Across the room, Megan was speaking with the photographer. She looked at me once and then looked away. Later, during dinner, Daniel approached my table. "Can I steal Allison for a minute?" he asked. We walked toward the hallway outside the ballroom where the music was quieter. He thanked me for coming. I was always coming. I wasn't sure. "Megan didn't want me here?" "That's not what I said." He looked toward the ballroom doors. "Figured out the money," he said. "I know. I'm not telling you to make you feel guilty." "Okay." "I also don't want you thinking we expected you to pay for our life. I watched a server carry a tray of empty glasses past us. I think you expected the loan." "I did, after your mom spoke to us. That isn't the same thing as me agreeing. I understand that now." His face tightened after he said it, as though the sentence had cost him something. I asked whether he and Megan were all right. "We're getting married," he said. "You already did that part." He smiled despite himself, then rubbed his thumb along the edge of his wedding band. "We've had some arguments. About me? About money." That answer left room around the subject, and I did not press him to close it. Before we returned to the ballroom, he said, "For what it's worth, I shouldn't have asked what the new job paid." "It was worth less than you think. I'm still sorry." Megan and I did not have a private conversation that night. She hugged me in the receiving line. She thanked me for coming in the same voice she used with distant relatives. During photographs, she placed her hand lightly against my back, then removed it as soon as the camera lowered. Mom remained composed until near the end of the reception, when she found me standing alone beside the coat room. "Your sister noticed you didn't offer a toast," she said. "No one asked me to." "You could have volunteered." I didn't know she wanted one. She probably didn't, after everything. There was no response that would improve the moment. Dad joined us, carrying his jacket over one arm. "Let it go," he told Mom. She looked at him as though he had betrayed her by saying it in front of me. Dad turned to me. "Good first week. It was busy. Heard the new title is impressive. It's a manager position. Salary match the title?" Stared at him. He raised one hand, just making conversation. "No, you aren't." Dad's face closed. Mom looked toward the ballroom, perhaps checking whether anyone could hear. I lowered my voice. "I'm not discussing my salary. We're your parents," Dad said. "That doesn't give you a claim to the number. I didn't say it did." There was the old pattern again. A question, a denial that the question meant anything, and the expectation that I would repair the tension. This time, I did not. After a few seconds, Dad said, "We should help them clean up." He walked away with Mom. I stayed until the reception ended. I carried centerpieces to my aunt's car and helped collect the framed photographs from the welcome table. I did not leave early to make a point. When I hugged Megan goodbye, she returned the hug, but her arms loosened first. The wedding survived without my money. Our relationship did too, though survival was a less generous thing than I had once imagined. My first paycheck from the new job arrived on April 12th. I had been checking the payroll portal since 6 that morning, even though direct deposits usually appeared before midnight. The net amount was smaller than the salary offer math I had carried in my head.
Taxes, insurance, retirement contributions, and the partial pay period calculation reduced the impressive annual number to something ordinary enough to fit inside my checking account. I transferred money back into my emergency savings. Then I created a separate category for fall tuition. Mom called that evening. She began by asking about work. I told her the team was good, the systems were complicated, and I was still learning who needed information in which format.
"Have you been paid yet?" she asked. I sat at the kitchen counter, looking at the transfer confirmation on my phone. "Yes, that must be a relief." "It is."
"I'm glad." She paused. "Megan and Daniel have their first credit commitment next month." I waited. "They'll manage," she added. "I'm sure they will."
Mom asked whether I planned to register for the fall course. I told her registration opened in June. With the new salary, at least it won't be difficult. It will be manageable.
"That's what I mean." I moved the phone to my other ear. "Mom, I need us to stop using my salary as an answer to every question." "I was talking about your tuition. You also used it to justify moving the tuition money. We did not know the amount. You knew I had a stable job." "That was enough. Would you rather we thought you were struggling?" The question sounded sincere. "No," I said. "I'd rather you understand that being able to survive a decision doesn't make the decision fair." Mom was quiet. Then she said, "I don't like the way you talk to me now." "I don't like having to be this exact. You don't have to be. When I wasn't exact, you told Megan and Daniel I was probably helping." "I said you were considering it. They put $10,000 under my name. That was their mistake. It started with what you told them." Mom's voice rose slightly. "Sus, now everything is my fault. I didn't say everything. You don't have to. You build the case one piece at a time." I closed my eyes. She was not wrong about how I spoke when I felt cornered. I gathered facts. I removed adjectives. I tried to make my position difficult to misquote. To my mother, that sounded like prosecution. "I'm trying to tell you what has to change," I said. She did not answer. "If anyone asks me for money in the future, they need to ask me directly. My income, savings, credit, or future pay cannot be included in a plan unless I give a clear yes. Silence is not yes. Saying I need to think is not yes." "You've made that abundantly clear. I need to know you understand. I understand the words." That was all she would give me. We ended the call without resolving the tuition money or the wedding. A few weeks later, Mom told me that the roof over their back porch needed repair. She told me the estimate, complained about the contractor's schedule, and moved on to something else. She did not ask whether I could contribute. Dad called less often. When he did, he asked about the new job without asking what it paid. Our conversations were shorter. Money had been one of the ways he measured whether I was succeeding, and neither of us had found a replacement language. Megan sent a photograph from the wedding. It showed the four of us beside the hotel staircase, Mom composed, Dad slightly stiff, Megan radiant, and me smiling with one shoulder pulled back as though I had been called into the frame late. She wrote, "Photographer got a good one," I replied. "He did. We did not discuss the loan. Registration for corporate strategy opened in June." I enrolled before work and received a confirmation showing the increased course rate, a new graduation application fee, and a payment deadline in July. The money was already set aside. I closed the portal and left it there. The fall tuition bill arrived on a Wednesday in July. I remember the month because the air conditioner in my apartment had started making a rattling noise, and I kept postponing the service call until I knew the exact school balance. The total was $4,910, including the increased course rate and fees. I paid it from the account I had created after my first paycheck. The money was there. The payment did not threaten my rent or empty my emergency savings. I still sat at the kitchen table for a while after the confirmation appeared. The higher salary had made the delay easier to absorb. It had not given me back the semester or made the extra cost imaginary.
I called the air conditioning company before I closed my laptop. Megan's anger changed shape over the next few months. At first, she returned to the timing of my refusal. Later, she focused on the fact that I had attended the wedding and behaved as though nothing was wrong.
What did you want me to do? I asked during one phone call. I don't know. Leave? No. Tell everyone about the money? Of course not.
Then what? I wanted you to understand what it was like for me. I understand that you had to change the wedding. That's the financial part. What part am I missing? She was quiet long enough that I thought the call had dropped. I thought you would want to help me, she said. The sentence was simpler than the accusations that had come before it. I did want to help you, just not enough. I wasn't willing to use my emergency savings for the reception. You had the money. I had money. She asked whether I would have lent it for a medical emergency. Yes, so you do have rules.
Of course I have rules. I just don't have the same ones you do. I'm trying to understand them. I know.
That was the first time during the call that neither of us sounded angry. It did not last. Our conversation ended badly, but it was more honest than most of the conversations we had during the wedding. She wanted my resources to reflect how much I loved her. I wanted love to remain separate from access to my bank account. Neither of us found a sentence that made the other position feel harmless. Mom apologized in October. It happened at her kitchen table while Dad was outside clearing leaves from the gutters. She poured coffee into my cup and sat across from me without taking off her reading glasses. I should not have told Megan you were likely to help, she said.
I waited. I thought I knew you. You do know me. I thought I knew what you would do. That isn't the same thing. No.
She turned the coffee mug slowly between her hands. I also should have told you before we transferred the $5,000. It was not an apology for transferring it. I noticed that immediately and wished I had not. Why didn't you? I asked. Because I knew you would make it complicated. It was complicated. For us, it wasn't. The venue needed money. Your tuition could be handled another way. There was another way because I paid more and graduated later. You were able to. I looked toward the window over the sink. Dad's ladder leaned against the house. Wet leaves moved along the gutter in small clumps. Mom said, I'm sorry, I assumed.
I am. I believed she was sorry for speaking on my behalf. I did not know whether she was sorry for deciding that the promise to me could be broken because I was the child most likely to absorb it.
I no longer needed her to answer both questions before I accepted the one answer she had managed. Thank you, I said. She nodded and looked relieved too quickly. Dad never apologized. He continued to believe the wedding had a fixed date and my degree did not. In a narrow sense, he was right. The wedding happened in April. I completed corporate strategy in December. My parents attended graduation. Megan and Daniel came too. Mom brought flowers. Dad took too many photographs. Megan hugged me and said, "You finally did it," then made a face as if she had heard the extra history in the word. Daniel shook my hand before pulling me into an awkward hug. No one mentioned the wedding debt. No one offered to reimburse the additional tuition or the new fee. After the ceremony, we ate at a restaurant near campus. Dad paid for dinner. When the check came, he did not joke about my salary or suggest that the finance manager should cover it. I noticed the restraint and let it remain small. The tuition money was never returned. The semester was not restored. Megan and I did not recover the careless closeness we had before she saw my name in her budget, and I saw hers in the reason our parents broke a promise. We still called each other. We still showed up. I kept telling my family when something good happened at work. I stopped telling them the number. Love remained present, but it no longer served as an account authorization.